before the town begins to stir, before doors open and lights come on, there is a warm place where time moves differently. In a quiet kitchen filled with gentle heat, someone works while the world sleeps. This story begins there, in the still hours just before morning remembers itself. Welcome to Bedtime Stories of Calm and Grace. Tonight's story is The Papermaker. Chapter 1. The River at Dawn. In a valley nestled between Green Mountains and Roma Valley, where the Okama River runs clear and cold from ancient springs, there exists a village that has been making paper for 1500 years. The morning mist rises from the water like spirits ascending to heaven, and the sound of the river is the first thing you hear when you wake and the last thing you hear before you sleep. This is Ekkaizen, the birthplace of washi, the traditional handmade paper of Japan. And in a wooden workshop beside the river, a man named Harry is already awake, preparing for another day of work that his family has performed for 9 generations. Harry is 64 years old. His hair is silver gray, cut short in the practical manner of craftsmen. His hands are remarkable, the skin soft from years of immersion in water, the fingers strong and precise from countless hours of pulling paper from wooden frames. He moves through the dim workshop with the ease of someone who knows every surface, every tool, every shadow by heart. Tonight, as you settle into the comfort of your bed, we will spend a day with Harry in his workshop beside the river. We will learn the ancient art of washi making, watching as bark becomes fiber and fiber becomes paper, as rough material is transformed through patience and skill into something of extraordinary beauty. We will discover what 15 centuries of tradition have taught about the relationship between human hands and the natural world. But there is no hurry. The river has been flowing through this valley since long before humans arrived. The mountains have been standing since time beyond memory, and the art of making paper, like the river itself, flows at its own pace, patient and unhurried and eternal. Chapter 2. The Blessing of Water. The workshop sits at the edge of the Okamoto River, positioned so that water can be drawn directly from the current. This is not coincidence, but necessity, for washi cannot be made without pure water, and the water of this valley is famous throughout Japan for its clarity and softness. Harry walks to the edge of the river and kneels on the worn stones. He cups his hands and lifts the water to his face, feeling its coolness, smelling its mineral freshness. This is a ritual he performs every morning, a moment of gratitude for the gift that makes his work possible. The water comes from deep in the mountains, filtered through layers of rock and soil over countless years. It emerges from springs that have never run dry, not in drought, not in summer heat, not in the memory of any living person. The old ones say that the goddess Kawakami Gozen blessed these springs 15 centuries ago, when she first taught the villagers how to make paper. Whether this is history or legend, the water remains cold and pure and essential. Harry returns to the workshop, carrying a wooden bucket filled with river water. The interior is dim, lit only by the pale light filtering through paper screens. The air smells of wet wood and something else, something vegetal and slightly sweet. The scent of kozo bark, soaking in preparation for today's work. Along one wall, bundles of bark hang from wooden pegs, sorted by grade and readiness. Along another, wooden frames of various sizes lean against each other, their mesh screens taut and waiting. In the center of the room, a large rectangular vat sits on low supports, filled with milky liquid that shifts and swirls with the slightest movement. This vat is the heart of the workshop. Everything that happens here, all the preparation and processing and care, leads ultimately to this vessel and the transformation that occurs within it. Harry runs his hand along the smooth wooden edge, worn silky by generations of use, and begins his preparations for the day. Chapter 3. The Fibers of Life. Washi is made from the inner bark of 3 plants: kozo, the paper mulberry; mitsumata, a flowering shrub with delicate yellow blossoms; and gampai, a wild plant that cannot be cultivated and must be gathered from the mountainsides. Each produces paper with different qualities, and Harry's family has spent generations learning to blend them in precise proportions. Today, Harry is working with kozo, the most common and versatile of the 3 fibers. The bark was harvested in winter when the sap was down and the fibers were strongest. It was steamed to loosen the outer layer, then stripped by hand, the dark outer bark separated from the pale inner layer that will become paper. The inner bark has been soaking in the river for 3 days, softening, releasing impurities, becoming pliable. Harry lifts a bundle from the soaking trough and examines it, feeling the texture, judging the readiness. The fibers are long and strong, perhaps a meter in length, tangled together like wet hair. They gleam in the morning light, cream-colored and slightly translucent. He carries the bundle to a stone platform, worn smooth by centuries of use, and picks up a wooden mallet. What follows is a process called beating, though the word suggests violence where there is only patience. Harry lifts the mallet and brings it down gently, rhythmically, working across the fibers in a steady pattern. The sound is soft and hollow, like a heartbeat slowed to walking pace. The fibers begin to separate, spreading out across the stone, breaking apart while remaining intact. This is the paradox of washi. The fibers must be individualized without being damaged, spread apart without being severed. Harry beats the kozo for nearly an hour, turning the bundle, working every section, checking the progress with his fingers. When he is finished, the fibers are soft as silk, so fine they seem almost to float when lifted from the stone. They have been transformed from bark to potential, from raw material to the substance of paper. Chapter 4. The Mixing of Elements. The beaten kozo goes into a large wooden tub filled with cold river water. Harry stirs it gently with a long wooden paddle, watching as the fibers disperse and cloud the water like milk. The liquid becomes thicker, more substantial, as the fibers spread throughout its volume. But fiber and water alone do not make washi. There is a third element, a mysterious substance called neri, that gives Japanese paper its distinctive character. Neri is made from the root of the tororo ayu plant, a kind of hibiscus that grows in the valleys around Kaizen. When the root is crushed and soaked, it releases a viscous liquid, slippery and thick, that changes everything. Harry adds the neri to the vat, measuring by eye and instinct rather than any written formula. He has been doing this for 40 years, and his hands know what his mind could never calculate. Too little neri, and the fibers will clump together, making paper that is uneven and weak. Too much, and they will disperse too freely, making paper that is thin and fragile. He stirs the mixture again, feeling the change in resistance as the neri integrates with the water and fiber. The liquid becomes silky, almost oily to the touch, slipping between his fingers like something alive. This is the magic of washi, the alchemy that transforms simple ingredients into paper that can last 1,000 years. In the old days, they say, the best paper makers could judge the quality of their mixture by taste. Harry has never tried this, but he understands what they meant. There is an intimacy in this work, a relationship between maker and material that goes beyond the merely physical. The paper knows when it is being made with care, with attention, with love, and it responds accordingly. Chapter 5. The Dance of the Frame. Now comes the heart of washi making, the moment when liquid becomes solid, when potential becomes actual. Harry takes down a wooden frame from its hook on the wall and examines it carefully. This frame is called a suketa, and it consists of two parts, an outer frame that defines the size of the sheet, and an inner screen made of thin bamboo strips and silk thread. The screen is a marvel of precision, hundreds of bamboo strips laid parallel, each one thinner than a matchstick, bound together with silk so fine it is nearly invisible. When held to the light, the screen creates a pattern of lines, faint but present, that will be visible in the finished paper. This pattern is the signature of the maker, as distinctive as a fingerprint. Harry carries the frame to the vat and dips it into the milky liquid. This is the critical moment, the instant when 40 years of practice either succeed or fail. He scoops the liquid onto the screen, then begins a motion that is almost impossible to describe, a kind of rocking and shaking that spreads the fibers evenly across the surface. The motion is called nagashizuki, and it is unique to Japanese papermaking. In Western techniques, the frame is dipped once and held still, allowing the fibers to settle wherever they fall. But in nagashizuki, the frame is dipped repeatedly, each scoop adding a thin layer of fibers, and the shaking motion aligns them in interlocking patterns that give washi its extraordinary strength. Harry's body sways as he works, his shoulders rolling, his wrists turning, his whole being engaged in the dance of the frame. The motion is hypnotic to watch, a gentle rocking like a boat on calm water, back and forth, until the screen is covered with a thin layer of white. He lifts the frame and examines the layer against the light. Too thin in one corner. He dips again, scoops again, rocks again, adding fiber where it is needed. The process is repeated 3, 4, 5 times, each layer bonding with the one beneath, until the sheet reaches the desired thickness. When he is satisfied, Harry carries the frame to a low table and, with a motion almost too quick to follow, flips the wet sheet onto a stack of other sheets, separated by thin cloths. The paper releases from the screen with a soft sucking sound, fragile as a newborn, beginning its journey from liquid to solid. Chapter 6. The morning accumulates. The morning passes in cycles of dipping and shaking, of scooping and stacking. Harry falls into a rhythm that is almost meditative, his mind quieting as his body takes over. There is a kind of prayer in this repetition, a surrender to the work that leaves no room for worry or distraction. Outside the workshop, the world continues its business. Birds sing in the trees along the river. The sun climbs higher, its light growing stronger, filtering through the paper screens in soft geometric patterns. The mist burns away from the valley, revealing the green mountains that embrace this place like protective arms. But inside the workshop, time moves differently. Each sheet takes perhaps 3 minutes to form, but those minutes stretch and contract according to their own logic. Sometimes an hour passes like moments. Sometimes a single sheet seems to take forever, the fibers refusing to cooperate, the thickness never quite right. Harry does not fight these variations. He has learned, over decades, that the work has its own rhythm, its own will. Some days, the paper wants to be made. Other days, it resists. The skill lies not in forcing the outcome, but in responding to what the materials offer, in finding the harmony between intention and acceptance. By mid-morning, the stack of wet sheets has grown tall, perhaps 80 sheets, each one hand-formed, each one slightly different from the others. They sit under a wooden board, weighted with stones, the water slowly pressing out of them, the fibers beginning their slow transformation from suspension to solid. Harry pauses to rest, sitting on a low stool by the window that overlooks the river. He drinks tea from a ceramic cup, glazed the color of autumn leaves, feeling the warmth spread through his hands. The river flows past, carrying leaves and twigs downstream, never stopping, never hurrying, simply flowing as it has flowed for a million years. Chapter 7. The Weight of Tradition. The workshop where Harry works was built by his great-great-grandfather more than 150 years ago. The beams are hand-hewn from local cedar, darkened by decades of smoke and steam. The floor is worn into gentle hollows where generations of feet have stood, performing the same motions, making the same paper. On a shelf near the window, a small shrine holds offerings to Kawakami Gozen, the goddess who legend says brought papermaking to this valley. A cup of fresh water, changed daily, a small dish of rice, an incense stick, its smoke curling upward in delicate spirals. Harry's grandmother tended this shrine, as her mother did before her. Now his wife, Yoshiko, performs this duty, maintaining the connection between the living and the divine. There is a photograph on the wall, faded with age, showing Harry's father at the vat, performing the same dance of the frame that Harry performs today. His father's father is there too, in an older photograph, and his father before that, captured in a painting made when photography had not yet reached this valley. The faces change, but the posture remains the same, bent slightly forward, arms extended, body swaying in the eternal rhythm of Nagashizuki. Harry thinks sometimes about this chain of inheritance, this unbroken line of hands, passing skill to hands. He learned from his father, who learned from his father, who learned from his. The knowledge is not written in any book. It lives in the body, in the muscles and tendons, in the subtle sense of how much pressure to apply, how fast to rock, when to add more fiber, and when to stop. His own children have left the valley, drawn to the cities where life moves faster and opportunities seem brighter. This saddens him, though he understands. The world has changed, and the demand for handmade paper is not what it once was. But still he makes his sheets, one by one, day after day, maintaining the tradition whether or not anyone comes to carry it forward. Perhaps it is enough simply to do the work. Perhaps the value lies not in the continuation, but in the doing, in the daily practice of transforming bark into beauty. The goddess does not ask for guarantees of immortality. She asks only for attention, for care, for the honest effort of human hands. Chapter 8. The Afternoon Rest. After the midday meal, Harry rests. This is not laziness, but wisdom, a recognition that the body requires periods of stillness to balance periods of work. He lies on a tatami mat in the small room adjacent to the workshop, listening to the sounds of the river and the birds and the wind in the trees. His eyes close, and his breathing slows. The morning's work still lives in his muscles, a pleasant ache in his shoulders and forearms. His hands tingle slightly from the hours in cold water, the nerves remembering sensation, even as they rest. Sleep comes easily in the afternoon, a light doze that hovers at the edge of consciousness. Images drift through his mind, neither dream nor memory, but something in between. He sees his father's hands, strong and sure. He sees the river as it was in his childhood, before the concrete barriers were built upstream. He sees sheets of paper drying in the sun, row upon row of white rectangles glowing against the green of the mountains. The quality of light changes as he rests. The sun passes its zenith and begins its slow descent toward the western peaks. Shadows lengthen on the workshop floor. The air cools slightly as afternoon breezes begin to stir. Harry wakes slowly, gradually, without alarm. There is more work to do, but there is also time. There is always time, here in the valley, where the rhythm of days follows the rhythm of seasons, and the seasons follow the rhythm of centuries. He rises, stretches, and returns to the workshop to continue his work. Chapter 9. The pressing of sheets. The stack of wet sheets has been resting under its weighted board since morning. Now, Harry removes the weights and begins the delicate process of separating and pressing the paper. Each sheet must be handled with extreme care, for wet washi is fragile, easily torn, easily damaged. He peels the first sheet from the stack, using the cloth beneath it as a support. The paper clings to the cloth, reluctant to separate, then releases with a soft sound like a whispered secret. He transfers it to a smooth board and uses a brush to eliminate any bubbles or wrinkles, working from the center outward in gentle strokes. The brush is made from horsehair, soft but firm, designed specifically for this purpose. Harry's father made it decades ago, and despite years of use, the bristles remain supple and true. Some things, when made with care, last far longer than we expect. The brush knows its work. The paper knows the brush, and Harry's hand knows them both. Sheet by sheet, he transfers the paper from stack to board. The work is slow and repetitive, requiring constant attention, but no great physical effort. His mind enters a state of calm focus, aware of each movement, but not thinking about it, simply doing what needs to be done. The boards with their attached sheets are stacked against the south wall of the workshop, where they will receive the warmth of the afternoon sun. The heat will drive out the remaining moisture, transforming wet fiber into dry paper. By tomorrow morning, these sheets will be ready for the final steps of polishing and sorting. Outside the window, the light has taken on the golden quality of late afternoon. The mountains are silhouettes now, dark against a sky that shades from blue to amber. A heron stands in the shallows of the river, motionless as a statue, waiting for fish. Harry watches it for a moment, appreciating its stillness, its patience, its willingness to wait as long as necessary for what it needs. Chapter 10. The Evening Preparation. Kandal Sahib. As the day draws toward its close, Harry begins preparing for tomorrow. This is the nature of the craft. Today's work is never complete in itself, but always part of a larger cycle, each day laying the foundation for the next. He checks the kozo that has been soaking, judging how much longer it needs before it will be ready for beating. He examines his supply of neri, stored in wooden buckets in the cool corner of the workshop, and determines that he will need to prepare more within the week. He inspects his screens and frames, looking for damage, noting which might need repair. The workshop is quiet now, the day's activity settled into stillness. The vat has been emptied and cleaned, ready to be filled again tomorrow. The tools hang in their places, each one exactly where it belongs. The stack of wet sheets rests against the wall, beginning their slow journey toward dryness. Harry sweeps the floor, gathering the stray fibers and bits of bark that have accumulated during the day's work. He empties the waste into a basket that will be carried to the compost pile behind the house. Nothing is wasted in washi making. Even the remnants return to the earth, feeding the soil that will grow next year's kozo. He refills the water offerings at the small shrine, using fresh water from the river. The incense has burned down to ash, and he lights a new stick, watching the smoke curl upward in the still air. He bows slightly, a gesture of gratitude that requires no words, and turns to leave the workshop for the day. Chapter 11. The Walk Home. The path from the workshop to Harry's house follows the river for 100 meters before turning up the slope of the valley. He walks slowly, his feet knowing every stone and root, his eyes taking in the familiar beauty of his home. The river catches the last light of the sun, turning from silver to gold to copper as the minutes pass. Fish rise to feed on insects, leaving expanding circles on the surface. On the surface, a kingfisher flashes past, a blur of blue and orange, diving into the shallows and emerging with its pride. The houses of the village are scattered along the valley floor and partway up the slopes. Most are old, built in the traditional style with dark wood and white plaster, their roofs heavy with clay tiles. Many belong to other papermakers, families who have been here as long as Harry's own, sharing the water and the tradition. He passes the Tanaka workshop, where old Masako still makes paper at 83, her hands as skilled as they were 50 years ago. He passes the Yamamoto house, where the family has shifted to machine production, turning out paper in quantities that Harry could never match by hand. He passes the shrine, where the goddess Kawakami Gozen is honored every May when the village holds its festival of paper. His own house sits at the edge of the settlement, a modest building of wood and paper that his grandfather built when he was young. Smoke rises from the chimney, carrying the smell of cooking rice. Through the windows, he can see Yoshiko moving in the kitchen, preparing the evening meal. Chapter 12. The Evening Meal. The interior of the house is warm and welcoming. The floors are covered with tatami mats, woven from rush and smelling faintly of grass. A low table occupies the center of the main room, and a kettle steams on a small charcoal brazier in the corner. Yoshiko greets him without looking up, her hands busy with chopsticks and bowls. They have been married for 38 years, and their rhythms are so intertwined that words are often unnecessary. He removes his work clothes and washes his hands and face, then takes his place at the table. The meal is simple but nourishing. Rice, of course, the foundation of every Japanese meal. Miso soup with tofu and wakame seaweed. Grilled fish from the river, its skin crispy, its flesh tender. Pickled vegetables, made by Yoshiko using recipes handed down from her grandmother. Tea, green and slightly bitter, cleansing the palate between bites. They eat in companionable silence, the only sounds the soft clicking of chopsticks and the distant murmur of the river. Through the window, the last light is fading from the sky, the mountains becoming dark shapes against a deep blue canvas. After dinner, Harry helps clear the dishes. They work side by side in the small kitchen, washing and drying with practiced efficiency. The water for washing comes from a well behind the house, the same underground source that feeds the springs in the mountains. Even here, at home, the water of Eikaizen is present, essential, life-giving. When the dishes are done, they return to the main room. Yoshiko takes up her sewing, mending a tear in one of Harry's work shirts. Harry sits by the window, watching the darkness deepen, thinking about nothing in particular. Simply being present in this moment, this house, this life. Chapter 13. The Paper by Lamplight. Later, when the night has fully arrived, Harry takes a sheet of paper from a cabinet near the window. This is his own paper, made last autumn, aged now for several months. He carries it to the lamp and holds it up to the light. The paper glows, translucent and warm, the fibers visible as a delicate web of lines and intersections. It is cream-colored, soft to the touch, stronger than it appears. When he flexes it gently, it bends without cracking, returning to flatness when released. When he brings it to his face, he can smell the faint scent of kozo, vegetable, and clean. This is what 1500 years have created. This is what his hands have made, following the hands of his father, and all the fathers before. It is nothing more than bark and water and time, and yet it is beautiful, and yet it will last for centuries, and yet it carries within it the spirit of everyone who has ever made paper in this valley. Harry returns the sheet to its cabinet and extinguishes the lamp. The room falls into darkness, lit only by the faint glow of stars through the window. He makes his way to the sleeping room, where Yoshiko has already laid out the futons. He lies down and feels the day's weariness settle over him like a blanket. His shoulders ache pleasantly. His hands still carry the memory of cold water and smooth fiber. His mind holds the image of paper forming on the screen, white against white, delicate as snow. Chapter 14. The River at Night. Outside the house, the river continues its endless journey. It flows past the workshop, past the village, past the ancient shrine where the goddess is honored. It carries leaves and twigs and the reflection of stars. Never stopping, never hurrying, simply flowing as it has flowed since the mountains were born. In the workshops along its banks, the paper waits in darkness. Wet sheets rest against walls, slowly drying. Soaking bark releases its fibers into cold water. Screens and frames hang in their places, ready for tomorrow's work. The tradition sleeps, but it does not stop. It continues in the silence, in the waiting, in the patient presence of materials and tools. Harry drifts towards sleep, his breathing slowing, his thoughts dissolving. He is aware of Yoshiko beside him, her warmth familiar and comforting. He is aware of the house around him, the walls and roof that shelter his rest. He is aware of the river, always the river, its voice a constant murmur at the edge of consciousness. In his half-sleep, he sees the goddess Kawakami Gozen, young and beautiful, walking along the banks of the river. 1500 years ago, she carries a bundle of kozo bark, and she is teaching the villagers how to transform it into paper. Her hands move in the ancient rhythm, dipping and rocking, and the first sheet of washi forms on the screen like a miracle. The vision fades, and deeper sleep claims him. But somewhere in his dreams, the work continues. His hands remember the motions even as his body rests. The fibers align, the water drains, the paper forms. Creation happens in the darkness as surely as it happens in the light. Chapter 15. The 1000-Year Paper. And now, as you settle into your own rest, let the images of Ikaizen Valley wrap around you like the softest paper. Feel the cool water of the river against your hands. Hear the gentle rhythm of the mallet on stone, the soft swishing of fiber and water, the quiet sound of paper releasing from screen. You are held in a tradition older than memory, a practice that has continued without interruption for 1500 years. Countless hands have performed these same motions in this same valley, beside this same river, and the paper they made still exists, stored in temples and archives, carrying the words and images of civilizations long vanished. The paper will outlast us all. This is its gift, its purpose, its quiet miracle. Made from the humblest materials, bark and water, and the sticky root of a flower, it becomes something that defies time, that carries meaning across centuries, that holds the trace of every hand that touched it in its making. Harry sleeps now, and the goddess watches over him as she watches over all who carry forward her ancient gift. The river flows, the stars turn, the night deepens toward dawn, and somewhere in the darkness, paper waits to be made, fibers wait to be transformed, tradition waits to be continued for another day. Rest now. The water holds you. The fibers embrace you. The patient art of 1,000 years settles over you like the lightest, softest, most beautiful paper ever made. Let your thoughts dissolve like bark in water. Let your body soften like beaten kozo. Let sleep come as naturally as paper forming on the screen, layer by layer, breath by breath, until you are held in perfect stillness. The river flows. The paper waits. And you, like all fragile and beautiful things, are cradled in the ancient peace of Ikaizen Valley, dreaming of water and light, and the gentle transformation of simple things into lasting beauty. The morning light. When dawn comes to Ikaizen Valley, the mist will rise again from the river. Harry will wake and walk to the workshop, and the cycle will begin anew. The kozo will be ready for beating. The vat will be filled with fresh water. The screens will be lifted from their hooks. And somewhere in the world, a sheet of washi made in this valley will catch the light. Perhaps in a museum where ancient scrolls are preserved. Perhaps in an artist's studio where new works are being created. Perhaps in a simple home where a letter written on handmade paper carries words of love or remembrance. The paper does not know where it goes or what it holds. It knows only that it was made with care, by hands that understood its nature, in a place where the water is pure and the tradition is unbroken. It knows only that it exists, that it endures, that it carries within its fibers the spirit of a goddess and the work of 10,000 hands. Sleep well. The valley is at peace. The river flows eternal. And the patient and beautiful waits for whatever words or images you might one day choose to place upon it.